part of the series Transforming HR, organized by Signium and Stein & Partner. Our initiative is meant to bring together HR and business leaders interested in staying up to date with latest people hot topics and how are they being approached by top organizations. As you probably know, because you felt it yourself, this month marks 1 year since the COVID-19 pandemic caused the fastest and largest shift in human behavior at scale. You might remember that exactly 1 year ago, on the 23rd of March, 2020, we've been forbidden to leave our houses after 10 o'clock. And since then, lots of things changed for us personally, but also changed for us professionally. And now we are 12 months down the line into this turmoil, which seems far from ending. But I think that we all feel stronger, a bit more equipped to face the uncertainty, and possibly with more answers than questions. This turmoil also pushed us, each of us, to reconsider our priorities, what's important for us, maybe our values, with whom we spend time, and probably our purpose. And so did the companies. Therefore, today, for the first event from the series, we've decided to look into how companies looked at their purpose and how they translated it into different initiatives to cope with the changes. I am Raluca Modoran, Senior Leadership Advisor within Signium Stein & Partner, and I will be the host for the next 1 hour. I have today with me 3 senior leaders from 3 different companies, 3 different industries, with 3 different perspectives that were interested in sharing with me and with you how has been for them the past 12 months and how they've acted or reacted on the changes. Now, let me introduce you our speakers. It's Andreea Mihnea, Chief People Officer at First Bank in Romania. Hello, Andreea. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Good to be here.
And we have with us Daniel Reisenauer, Managing Director at Visma Software for Romania and Ireland. Hello, Daniel. Welcome.
Hi, Raluca. Hi, everyone. Also happy to be here and share my thoughts with you.
And we also have Sorin Banulescu, People and Culture Director for Heineken Romania. Hi, Sorin. Welcome.
Hi, Raluca. Thanks a lot for the invitation. It's a pleasure.
Now, a few house rules. This event is recorded, so we can share it afterwards with the ones that could not make it today. Each of our guest speakers will have around 10 minutes to share with us their thoughts, and then you can interact with them through your questions. So during their presentation, make use of the Q&A session in Zoom and post the questions there. We will pick up your questions and try to respond to as many as we can in the 5 minutes or so that we have. Then after the 3 presentation, I will invite the 3 guest speakers for a panel conversation, where again, I will welcome your questions. And then we can start, right? One more thing, I would like to thank our partners for the event. We have Coaching DPT, we have Culture Amp, Define PR, Netherlands Romanian Chamber of Commerce, and Romania Insider as our media partner. Our first guest speaker for today is Andreea Mihnea. She is a very strong HR professional with more than 20 years of experience in HR field in all areas, from organizational development to leadership development to talent management. She has been involved in so many initiatives so far that she will be willing to share with us today what are her learnings and what are her recommendations moving forward. Thank you, Andreea, for taking the time to be here with us today. Now, you've joined First Bank and the management team of First Bank last year in June, so right in the middle of the pandemic. I'm very curious, how has this been for you? How have you been able to react to everything that was around you? Because you were new in the organization and everything was new for everyone.
Yeah, so actually, thank you for the invitation. Actually, this is the twofold perspective of what I'm going to talk about in the next 10 minutes with you and everyone invited. Because first and foremost, the experience of the pandemic is a personal one. And depending on how you actually take this journey into the personal during this time, it translates a lot into what you do into the professional area. So I'm going to make a mix in the next few minutes about that. And hopefully we'll be able to translate to you and share with you my thoughts and invite you to some reflection on that. So before going into the deep part of the topic, I want to share with you an experience. And the reason why I want to share with you this experience is because the last year has been mostly about living our lives in a virtual space. So transferring a lot of what we are and what we do into a digital world. And I can't stop but remembering my first experience that I had with meeting a robot. It was I think 2 or 3 years ago. It was a large event, and I got to meet there on stage one of the most developed and the most humanoid type of robots that you can have nowadays. It was Sophia. I'm sure that some of you have met with her and have even had the chance to interact with her. So of course I was very excited because it was the first time I could talk to a robot without an algorithm, or without a program. It was supposed to be something like very close to human interaction. Well, in the meantime, just to let you know, I've met other robots which were nicer, I would say. I met Gitsa in a hotel in Brasov about 2 months ago. And I met Pepper, which a lot of you know. So those were nice, a lot nicer. So despite Sophia being really beautiful and really, how shall I say, very, very posh, I had this discussion with her. Of course, I asked a question, not very intricate, because I was aware this was a robot. And as I asked the question and waiting for the answer, she did answer. It was a very rounded answer. And then I asked another question, she answered again. But then I realized that my mind, my brain was struggling. And I kind of got a block in my head. I realized that my brain was missing out on something which was very important. You know very well, when we humans interact, when we communicate, there is a whole world of messages that we are deciphering, we're decrypting, and we're transmitting during that conversation. And at that point, I realized that I was totally missing out on that. And the feeling, so later on when I was thinking, what was that I was feeling? What I was feeling was loneliness and a little bit of despair, because I was engaging into an interaction, but actually a part of it was not there. And the feeling was very, very strange. So you will see why I chose to share with you this experience, despite the fact that I'm a big promoter of digitalization, of technology, both in private life, but especially in my professional life. So I will go now to sharing a presentation that I have just to support some of the things that I want to share with you. Just give me a brief moment, please. And there it is. Please let me know if you can see it. Yeah, can you see it? Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. So yeah, it's a lot about that kind of conversation I had with Sophia and what this year taught me about where do you actually draw the line despite being a promoter and sometimes an evangelizer on technology. So I invite you now to think about the distinction, which I'm sure you all know, between digitization and digitalization. Yeah, there's a big distinction among that. And I'll invite you to reflect on some of the scenarios of your life. So I see here that we have about 60 people on the line. I'm sure that some of us are parents. So think about your children getting educated via the digitized education. So the platforms that we use are a plus for sure, but is the process really adapted to that kind of mass education? And then what are the children missing on that interaction? Pretty much like my conversation with Sophia. Where do they take that loss? Where does it pile up for them and for us? I'm not gonna answer. If you're a manager, and some of these 60 people I'm sure are managers, and I'm sure that you hop in, hop out in many meetings during the day. Yeah? You rarely have time for unplanned feedback. But sometimes it happens that in one of these conversations that you have had in a team, you notice once again, one of your team members makes a comment which is toxic to the team. And you decide you just have to address it immediately. So what do? You most likely send a note to that person using as many smileys as you can, putting that into a very neutral, note or key or tone that you can put it in. And still, God knows where you landed with that kind of feedback. Now, I'm sure that some of these people here have started a job during the pandemic in a new company. Or if they haven't, some of them work in HR. And I invite them to think about the onboarding of a new person in a company during a pandemic in a completely remote environment. I'm sure you did everything right, but what happened with the feeling of belonging? Did that happen or not? I'm sorry. I'll just take a moment to drink some water. Or if you are engaged in a transformative process at work, yeah, let's consider very simple things like asking people to use self-service or to use Jira, for example, for the ticketing system, which are very, very simple things, up to the level where you transform the way they work via different processes, where you ask them not to take commands or tasks, but you ask them to think for themselves, to pick up information from different places, or to make decisions based on that information which is available to them, which is a whole new difference between digitization and digitalization. These are just a few scenarios that I'm sure that some of you have been through that will tell you that there's a big, let's say, chasm between the promise of a digitized, let's say, event in your organization or in your life, and the process of actually making digitalization out of it. Because yes, technology makes everything possible. But if technology and digitization is not adopted and it does not respond to the question, does it bring me personal value? Does my experience, which is personal and which is mine, gets enhanced and better via that? That will not work. And now I will move to something that is very important to the job that we are doing if we work in HR, or even if we are leaders of companies. It's about getting people to climb that stairs, that line of stairs that is in front of us, which is digitalization. Do I make them do that, or can they actually respond to that calling by themselves because they want to? Now, if you think about just these two conditions, which are adoption and getting people to have personal value from a process or something that you're introducing into the organization, of course you think about what that organization is. So is that a digital native organization? Because if it is, things are easier. So this is most likely a request from the public to climb that line of stairs. But if on the other side, you're dealing with an organization which is, let's call it an incumbent, as professionals in this area are calling it, so a more traditional type of organization, then getting people to climb that line of stairs into digitalization is a very, very massive and very messy process. Because think about the fact that they need to understand the why behind. So why is it necessary for them to use Jira, which is a very simple thing? Why is it necessary for them not to call a colleague to solve a problem? Because they have the information available. Why should they pick information themselves and make decisions themselves when they can easily do the way that they did in order to every day deliver their deliverables? So the why is very important. Then the what. So how do you change what do you change every day? So I'm used to, let's say I'm having a flow of activities every day. Let's say I'm just doing paperwork the way I used to do it for the past 10 years. And somebody comes and says, no, you have to use electronic signature. No, you have to take all these things through a flow which is electronic. You have to completely change the way you're doing it. Of course, you don't want to do that. First of all, because you don't know how. Second, because maybe you have not had enough training on that. I'm sorry for this cough. Or third, because when you got stuck, there was not enough IT staff, or there was not enough information for you to unlock whatever you were doing there. I will apologize. The air is very dry here, so I'm having this cough. Never mind, it will pass. So in order to drive this adoption, the process is very, very messy and massive. And it's a lot of times in the hands of the leaders and in the hands of HR. And that's why I wanted to share with you that in order to drive proper adoption and a good personal or value experience out of either the client or the individual, the employee, it's very important to put a lot of discipline and emphasis into this process. So to go over this hill in order for people to actually see that finally it works. I discovered these 5 drivers to proper digitalization from a study that that was recently shared by McKinsey. And it talks about the importance of mobilizing all the stakeholders in the company, holding them accountable at all times and holding them responsible for that journey. Then the clarity of commitment should manifest itself also in the budgeting phase or in how we allocate time of people, you know, to run the business or to transform the business, because that's very important. Sometimes we go into the business with the same people having to do both and we make a mess of it. Then we wonder why people don't understand how they can climb that hill and go over it, because they actually don't know. You need to have sufficient resources devoted to that and make it an organizational priority. So once you have decided that, it's very hard to go back in the sense that sometimes you are redesigning processes, which means that some of the people with very low level skills will have to go, or you will have to find alternatives for those people. So you cannot go back. You need to be very, very clear on that commitment. Also, you have to have people who are technically talented, digital people, and a lot of digital natives to come within your talent base. And then again, flexibility and agility. If you're a leader of a company who's going through transformation and you want to become digital, then, you know, having your personal assistant doing your Outlook invites, or having your, I don't know, not using platforms that are available. So modeling all this digitalization is very important when you're leading such a transformation as a leader as well. So I just wanted to share with you some of the things that for me, they ring true. And I've noticed that they're very important in this process that I'm personally going through as one of the stakeholders here at First Bank. And towards the end of this, I will take you back to the personal side of this whole year, which I will call the maze. So here, it's about the importance of digitalization. It's necessary, but it's also very, very useful. It can get us far. At the same time, if we don't get it right, and if we get too much of it into forcing this into people's lives, we could hit a wall. And I'm going to speak about some of the instances which, like my meeting with Sophia at the beginning, can take a toll on the self, on our human self. And I will leave you reflecting to some of the instances in your personal life. So let's speak about how we communicate every day. We communicate virtually a lot, but we rarely or not at all meet physically these days. About that, I asked one of my children, who is a teenager, and of course she's a digital native. And I said, honey, how is that for you, that you have all this digital available for you all the time? And she said, you know, Mom, it's great that I can communicate with my people so easily, but I feel like my life is a screen. So yes, even for digital natives, life should not be a screen. Now, frozen screen. I'm sure that not only on our computer, but also in our lives, there are many pieces of our lives in this past year that are waiting to be unfrozen. And this is just a parallel with what we're doing every day. The leap of faith, I called this thing, which we as managers, as leaders need to do, and needed to do and still need to do and learn how to do in this past year and going forward. So think about the fact that before you had a lot of ways to, to look at what your people were doing, to distribute tasks, to be on top of things. And now, at times, you just have to trust that a colleague in your team did not respond to that note because they were so busy responding to others, and not because they were watching their favorite movie or favorite series. Yeah, you have to trust that, to take that leap of faith, and to trust and encourage, yeah, instead of controlling. Of course, we have to check from time to time, but first, I think that we need to give credit, and that's something that I think we've learned more during this pandemic. And yeah, one day soon, we'll go back to acting more like humans. We'll go back to having our lives more, not so much of a screen, but more like a full experience, like we're supposed to. And to leave you in a positive note, it's good that we still have Netflix. So I'm sure that from time to time, all of us go back to that, because in all of those series and movies, nobody's wearing a mask. And people still do have interactions like we used to have. So now, Raluca, you have your question answered, I hope. This is what it's been like. Thank you for listening to me, and apologies for the cough. It's now gone, of course, so.
Thank you very much, Andrea. That was so insightful. I'm also a huge fan of digital. To be honest, I've never met a robot yet. I've never interacted with Sophia yet, but that's I put it on my bucket list. We have a very interesting question received from the audience, which would like to get your opinion on why we need digitalization and robotization. What is the purpose and how this relates with humans and humanity?
Well, I think that now we have reached a stage when humans and humanity became quite complex, and in this world, it's a very strange thing to leave things which are very easy or very transactional for a human who has become so complex. Also spiritually, also mentally, we have access to so much information. We can connect the dots so much easier these days. So I think that for me, it's such a pity to leave, humans who are so nowadays now informed and so complex and so capable to do things that a robot can do. So for me, the purpose of that, linking that to the purpose, is enabling us to be our better selves and to do and to, I don't know, to behave at the uppermost part of our being, which is not necessarily, the doing part of the very repetitive things. So that's why I think we need it. And second, if we talk about digitalization, it's because we at this point can make better decisions by ourselves. We can be more agile where we work. So having access to information, being able to self-service is key to being able to take decisions and to be empowered for that.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Andreea. That was really thought-provoking. I know I've taken my homework for myself.
Okay.
Good. Thank you so much. Conscious of time, I will invite the next guest speaker for our event today, Daniel Reisenauer. Daniel is CEO now, Managing Director for Visma Software for Romania and Ireland. And he has extensive experience in building up shared services and BPOs, and a lot of experience in delivering HR services, IT services, and also building great teams. Welcome, Daniel. So happy to have you today. How has been for you? You've been leading the team in Visma Software for the past 12 months. How have you managed to translate purpose into different people initiatives?
Hi Raluca again, and hi everyone, and thanks a lot for giving me the opportunity to be here today with you. So yes, similar to Andreea, it was also for me a change a bit earlier. So starting with January last year, I have joined Visma. And yes, we all know that 2020 challenged all of us in terms of how we work, think, act, and especially interact. I can say that overall, as a summary in what I've seen in the last 12 months in Visma, is that we kicked off a new era of transforming of how we work, which is of course more flexible. But I also can say that in Visma, there was always a culture of, and I will share also a bit my screen. There was always a interaction model culture, because the company is pretty international. I will also very briefly talk about the company, so you get a better feeling why it was easy for us to really adapt and transform very fast. So it is a Nordic company with the headquarters in Oslo. It's one of the largest cloud SaaS providers in Europe, and basically we're developing software. The beauty of it is that we do a lot of acquisitions. It's almost 200 now since 2006. And the beauty about these acquisitions is that every company somehow keeps its culture. It's difficult to interact like that, but it gives also the opportunity to learn new cultures and to have a lot of international teams. So even before the pandemic, it was quite easy for people to interact, or a habit or a must to interact, to have asynchronous communications through all type of digital applications, especially Slack. But it really helped also from a mindset perspective to move totally into this digital era. On the other hand, of course, 2020 has also changed a bit the perception and our priorities. And especially for me, for example, I started with a big strategy in January, but gradually moved to the utmost priority of the safety of our people. And I'm mentioning this, and I will come back on that a bit later. So the purpose of Visma is to shape the future of society through technology, and empowering these people that come from many cultures to make a positive impact on our society. But how do you connect the people to the purpose? And when I joined the company in January, we had an EMPS survey running where a lot of people felt disconnected to the purpose of the general purpose of the company. And especially, how would you translate this on an individual level? On the other hand, we as individuals, we are increasingly looking for a meaning in our life. And does it make sense to look at that in the workplace as a source of meaning? And I found a very interesting, very old statement here from Aristotle. So where your talents and the needs of the world cross, there lies your vocation. And I thought that's exactly what I've seen throughout the last 12 months. And I picked up some examples here. They represent maybe not necessarily the full purpose of the company, but rather how this translates into people. And I've chosen the one about design. So we have a lot of UX innovation teams throughout a lot of business units in Visma, and they gathered all together at some point in an UX innovation jam. They wanted to understand a bit, okay, how can we really make this higher purpose of Visma to transform society through technology and apply it to ourselves, so to their teams. So, of course, they thought about design. It was a very interesting workshop for them because they came to a conclusion that they underestimate sometimes the power of having a higher purpose, or you oversee it in your daily life. It was a very interactive session that these people had, and the moderator has challenged them, look, let's look into the UN Sustainability Development Goals and see how can we link that to our products. And coming a bit back to Visma's products, we do a lot, of course, on the typical products that cover HRM systems, applications for finance and accounting, but we do also a lot for education, child welfare, or healthcare. But people don't see the bigger picture if you ask them at first sight. So these people understood by having a lot of brainstorming sessions that actually their work mattered in order to improve the lives of elders, for example. There is a product that helps elders not necessarily go to an elderly care home, but stay at home. But it needs to happen through the help of technology. On the other hand, they learned how to use, for example, storytelling to pitch this project and explain it, and also outside of this session to their colleagues. And it was a story about, in the end, what they love and what they have to do in order to really make it happen. And I asked one of these participants if he wants to, especially for this session here, to give me a feedback what he felt during those interactions. And he mentioned when design and production act as soulmates, they create this valuable perspective where good for business is good for people. And I thought that I want to mention this also to you, because it's about how my colleague feels about his job. So he sees design as art, and the beauty of art to make the world a better place. What's more beautiful than having the beauty of art combined in order to help with technology to create a better place for the future? And then coming back to what I mentioned earlier to you. So for me, the purpose changed for last year, really, besides growth, to see that I can really drive the health and safety of our people. And I thought again back about the missing purpose of my colleagues at the beginning of the year. How can they contribute, or how can they link the purpose of the company to their individual work? And in Visma, we believe that supporting education, like I mentioned before, equality, health, and the environment is key to building a more sustainable future. These pictures represent some of the initiatives we have done last year. And what I liked most about it, that yes, it was of course also some campaigns that we were funding. But most of the people that you see in these pictures are colleagues of mine. So they got actively involved. From sponsoring and then helping society to really give to the population these oximeters for pulse measurement, or for doing something for the environment. We did kayaking, and you see right here a lot of garbage. We have suddenly changed the usage of our 3D printers and starting to do the shields that then we donated to hospitals. We have a lot of colleagues that were involved in this program about how we support schooling, and especially teachers that were not used to the digital interactions with people. Donating and helping people with cancer. And people understood that this is their higher purpose. And it's not something that we wanted to give them as an objective at the beginning of the year, but they found out throughout the year that this is really something that they can link to what they do on a daily basis.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Daniel. That was so powerful. I also have a question. So you said that all your colleagues got involved because that resonated deeply with their purpose. What else do you think made them get so involved? Because I saw lots of initiatives from their side. What else was there?
So there was always a very strong attachment to the community. So Visma, as I said earlier, it's a Nordic company, but we are here in Romania since 2006, 2007. And both Timișoara and Sibiu, they are big development centers for us. And people felt always that it's their duty to help the community, be it by participating in similar events also pre-pandemic times. But also because they are, I would say also from an average age perspective, people that want to make a difference, people that you have seen in the streets during the last years in really wanting to raise their voice. So I think this mindset helped also a lot.
Mm-hmm. We have a question from the audience, which says, as a managing director, what is the advice you'd give to the HRDs or other leadership team members? And I think it refers to, focusing on this period of time to get employees or their colleagues engagement. So what would be your advice?
So I have the luxury to be advised by my HR director because we know each other for so many years and worked for many years together. But I think where we both agreed and what I would give as an advice, but most probably Sorin and Andreea will have the same opinion here as me, is really look into the mental health of our people. We have seen probably like 99% of everybody that works in multinationals that productivity has increased, but we need to be super careful about not burning people out. And by creating also the balance, of course, again, taking care of health and safety in the next period to follow, but let the people go out. Let them really do activities outside. Let them. We also applied a lot of ways of interacting, walking meetings, and things where you really connect in a different way and get out and see work differently than we have done before.
Okay. Any specific advice for other leadership team members? Because I know we have a few in the audience.
Listen to your people.
Right.
Be transparent and listen to your people. Keep communicating to them. Get the feedback from them. A lot of the ideas that I shared with you earlier came from our people.
Very strong. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Daniel.
Thank you as well.
It was really insightful. We move on now to Sorin Banulescu. He is People and Culture Director in Heineken Romania, has been working with Heineken 14 years now, so from 2007, if I'm not mistaken. Has been working for Heineken on 3 continents, Europe, Africa, and the Caribbean. Quite exciting. And in all his experience, he has led multiple projects in different areas like diversity and inclusion and building digital capabilities. And he's also a huge fan of well-being programs. He has a personal experience on working in multiple cultures, which helped him to build different perspectives. And Sorin, I know you have a strong opinion on how this can change your perspective. So what's the key ingredient? What are the key ingredients from your perspective?
Thank you, Raluca. Well, I will try to link a bit my first answer also with with Daniel and Andrea's interventions. Because it is a bit funny. I liked the last remark of Daniel when he said that mental health is very much important. And I think every organization has a dilemma nowadays on what is the line. So now I'm linking to Andrea, what is the draw line where digitation and digitalization should work properly. I think it's the same thing with working digital versus connecting together. And I think it's difficult to find an answer because if you look on different businesses, most probably IT ones, they appear to be a bit more digital user friendly. While in our case, we are a beer company. Basically, we brew moments of social connection. So you can imagine for us, digital, let's say after a certain limit, it becomes a bit of an enemy in a way. So how to balance that? What is the correct way to balance that? It's actually something that we didn't find yet an answer, but we also introduced quite an extensive well-being program, which is basically structured on 3 pillars. One is the physical, one is the emotional, and one is the mental health. And we have a lot of interventions regarding this type of interactions in order to keep the organization up to a certain level of, let's say, engagement in a positive way. And I agree with you, Daniel. Productivity went high, although, to be honest, before pandemic, if you ask anybody in this group, most probably about 10% will say that working from home is more efficient than working from the office. But in the same time, it was a bit of a marathon with the speed of a sprint, which is, let's say, very much on a short-term positive from a bit personal, but more company perspective. But on a longer term, we really need to be careful because the burnout could have different forms, and in the end, it will shoot back to the results of the organization. My presentation today will be a bit less about company, so I just made this intro to give you a bit of idea. We are now implementing also a bit of a leadership program, which is focusing on helping leaders throughout the entire organization, so about 200 people managers, how to support and basically focus on 2 things, collaboration and care for their employees in these times of what we call VUCA, and I think it's a bit of a trendy term now, with volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous times. So we are investing a bit in that nowadays. My presentation will be a bit diverse and a bit exotic to bring also a bit of a fun element on the stage. And it's more a bit of a personal story within Heineken and a few learnings, insights that I've basically learned on the way, and most of them the hard way usually, because this is how the biggest impact is made. So I will try to share my screen now. I hope you see it. Yeah, so the first question, personal purpose versus company purpose. Which one should come first? Now, of course, I mean, theoretically, you can argue they should come organically together in an authentic way, right? So it will be perfect if the purpose of your people would match immediately the purpose of your company. But we know that in real life, things are not exactly like this. And I've asked around a few people, and depending on the stage of their life or professional life, I got totally different answers. For some of them, it was more important the company purpose. For others, actually, the company purpose didn't count at all, but only the personal purpose. So no matter how it goes, I think there is no right and wrong answer because the ideal world cannot be there. But I think it's a matter of reference and perspective. And I'm going to talk about that in a moment. What I will do first, I will just talk 2 minutes about me. Because that will help you understand a bit also my experience and the link with my story. So basically, I was born in a small city a bit more north, which is Târgoviște, which was the capital of actually the south of Romania for about 400 years. A city full of history, but not extremely rich. So I come from a very modest family, and I lived in a very modest neighborhood. So I also have what people call the street life in a way, which helped me a lot in my experience. I did sports for about 11 years in a more or less disciplined way, in a professional club. I have 2 girls now, some of them on the way in between my assignments. I like to travel a lot, so I think I've seen at least 50 countries. I stopped counting when I was at 40, and I still passed some time after that. I worked in 3 continents, and I owe this to Heineken also, because I got this opportunity for this big company with 80,000 people, 70 operations, 70 production operations in 70 countries, and basically selling in 192 countries in the world. Actually, Heineken brand is more present in the world than the Coca-Cola brand, just for you to have a bit of an image of the size of the opportunity, I would call it. I came in Heineken in 2007, and of course, I've done several roles until 2013 at the end. Raluca was actually my peer in Heineken Romania, so she was, the moment I left to my first assignment, she was HR manager commercial, I was HR manager supply chain for the production sites. In 2013 at the end, I had a bit of an opportunity, also a bit of a choice, what I want to do next. And I got basically 2 options. One of them was to go to Amsterdam and work for a bit of a global supply chain for TPM. The second one was to go in a totally different place in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in Kinshasa, which is the former Zaire of Mobutu Sese Seko, if you remember. They were very good friends of Ceausescu. So, of course, as any normal, healthy, mentally person, I chose Congo. I'm joking, of course. I've been attracted of a bit seeing a bit the different world, to be honest, and I was also a bit naive. I'm not going to say that I wanted to, I don't know. I was a bit naive thinking that, okay, let's go there with the head in front and then not thinking too much about the consequences. Of course, I never regret this. I think it was the biggest learning experience in my life. Congo is a country which is a bit like Romania in terms of principles. It's a bit like 2 countries in one. You can find on one hand a paradise, places that are great to see, people that are extremely amazingly friendly, that are extremely poor, yet they enjoy life at the max. They will never lose any second of living their life in a very authentic way. Things that for me, it was a bit of like a wow, because the moment I arrived there, I thought I'm the happiest one. Because I got a very nice house, an armed car, few guards, and quite basically entrance everywhere. But then I realized that in Europe, we basically lack a bit this acknowledgement of all the achievements that we have had throughout the last years. and we enjoy life much less than these people, which are basically living with less than $1 a day. So I was also a bit ashamed on that. But in the same time, I learned a lot from those people. Then I will not stay too much on the details. I give you the context because I have a final slide where I will list all my learnings from the two experiences. On the other hand, in Congo, besides poverty, there is also some social unrest. So you always need to be alert. You always need to be on the top of your toes because you never know when you need to do a move. Like, for example, being an HR director, sometimes I have to do evacuation of expats because in countries where if there is a lot of poverty, then there is also not so much of a school system, which means low capabilities, which means higher dependence on expatriates. And in this situation, you have quite a lot of responsibilities because expatriates come with families and usually with a lot of children, especially if they are Dutch, as our company is. So not an easy one to manage. But on the same time, I don't want to leave you with a negative impression because Congo was a great country for me. And it's actually one of the countries that taught me the most and changed me as a person, to be honest. Because when I left, I was extremely stubborn, thinking that I know everything, basically not very much open-minded to other people's ideas, compared to what I lived there, where basically if you want to have a meeting, you need to pass by every office to pick up the people because otherwise they don't show up. So it is a bit of a difficult, and then you need a lot of patience and a lot of calm to go through this. After I finished my assignment in Congo, which was about 3 years, just a little bit less, then I said, of course, I mean, I'm on the top 3 worst countries in the Heineken world. What can be next? It must be a paradise. And then I got Haiti, which is a bit worse than Congo in terms of social unrest. In Haiti, this is really extreme country. In terms of history and traditions and culture, I think it's one of the richest countries in the world. By the way, in the US, the slavery was abolished like 150 years after Haiti became the first Black independent republic in the world. Most probably that's why this country is not very much liked by anybody, because they set the tone and the trend of inclusion and diversity before everybody on this planet, when the colonization was really high in the world. So you can learn quite a lot from the history of Haiti. They have extremely nice ceremonies, like you can see on the left side of the screen, you have the carnival. They have a carnival similar to the Brazilian one. It's exactly in the same time. It's the Caribbean carnival. It's a very nice traditional. They also have in their traditions, the tradition of voodoo. I know that we looked at movies and we imagine all kinds of strange needles into dolls. Voodoo is not about that. It's a bit of folklore from the Haitian culture, and it's a little bit of medicine also. So, of course, not up to date and not necessarily the best one, but it's quite a highly cultural value for them. It's a very poor country. People here live also with less than $1 a day. And basically 98% of the population is basically below poverty level, which means that everybody is suffering. You have a lot of social unrest. I think in my last 1.5 years there, I've done 4 expatriates evacuation. But it was very intense. And these people, they enjoy life. So somehow, just like my fellow Congolese, gives you the feeling of what the hell is wrong in this world? I mean, in Europe, concentrates like 70% of the value and the wealth of the whole population. And I've never seen a party like I've seen in Haiti and Congo. So why is it happening? And I will go to the next slide where I will explain to you 5 lessons that I learned within these 2 assignments by interacting with people that usually would do the mistake of considering them or underestimating their value. So the first lesson was, and it helped me very much throughout the pandemic, I will explain to you why in a minute. So first you need to adapt your perspective and your reference to the new reality. And I gave you the example, right? I mean, being stubborn, expecting the highest quality from your peers or from your team, then you go in a place where people cannot read and write. So then you need to rethink a bit your approach, because otherwise you're basically gonna be lost, and actually you're gonna feel lonely and excluded. So adaptation for me was one of the key points. So basically, don't ask yourself why this is happening, but rather ask yourself what you have to do in order to understand and to enter into the subject. So instead of complaining, get involved into the situation, and then it will be better also for your health. The second lesson is never start by judging. Always try first to better understand. And I will give you a bit of an example here. When I came both in Congo and Haiti, the first thing that the expats would basically brief me is that these people are useless. There is nothing you can do with them. They never come on time, right? That was one of the things that that maybe opened the eyes a little bit. Of course, I mean, it's okay that if you are late 1 or 2 times, but usually you should come to work on time. Well, it depends on the situation. I will give you an example. Some of the people that I've met, because I try to understand a bit this situation, I went home with them on their way with their transportation means. Some of them were traveling 6 hours to come to the brewery and 6 hours back. That means 12 hours, and then you expect that they work 8 hours. So a little bit of understanding before judging in different situations, I think it will always help. Then a very important one for me, and it's very much linked to purpose, is if you want to receive, you should better first give. And then you earn the people around you. And I don't say that you need to pay money or bribe somebody, don't misunderstand me. But I will explain to you a bit the situation in Haiti where we have to do a big change program. And of course, we were asking ourselves, why the hell doesn't work? Because we put everything in place, we communicate, but there are a few things that we needed to give first in order for the people to be relieved of the social basic needs. And I will give you some extreme example. We only asked ourselves about this after 6 months I arrived. So you can imagine how much time we have lost, and it was lost even before me. Because, for example, one simple thing that we could do is to put an ATM in the brewery. An ATM is the cash machine, right? After 6 months, we have done a bit of a study because the mortality rate in Haiti is quite high and you basically don't know where it's coming from because there are no hospitals, nothing. So we understood that basically a lot of our people are killed when they go to the ATM machine to withdraw their salary. So it would have been very easy if earlier on, of course, the example is extreme. Sorry for that. I don't want to give you a wrong or an extreme image, but I just want to say that this thing didn't cost us any money. So if you just try to understand and you try to see what the people are missing in their life, and then just make sure those basic things are there, then you can build on that. You need to create a foundation of trust and credibility towards the organization and towards the management team in order to get their full support and to get them on board in achieving your vision. I tell you, after we didn't succeed for 1.5 years of changing something really significant in the organization, after we fixed 3 things, which was ATM in the brewery, a small clinic because there was no hospitals there, and the enhancement of the learning center where we started to teach people to read and write because 27% of our employees were illiterate. At that moment, the engagement was so high that basically our company results went like this. We didn't even know where it's coming from. It was all from the engagement of our people. I will give you an example on how that returned back. December is the biggest month in terms of sales. And we saw that at the gate of the brewery, all the people came, no matter their shift, on the 31st of December, asking us to give them crates of beer to sell them in order to reach our objectives. So basically, we spent together the New Year's Eve because they were so much engaged and so much wanted to prove to us that they want to pay back the things that we gave first, that it was quite impressive. And we actually spent the New Year's Eve together in a big party after the, of course, we achieved the objective, but we would have been achieving it anyway. Only that I was quite impressed on their genuine interest on the company health, which is something that basically is the first time in my life that I've seen. Another lesson: engage, help, enjoy the people and the cultural connection. And I will tell you one thing, it relates back to the pleasure of having fun, right? I mean, I came back to Romania in 2019, and if there is one thing that I miss the most, is the every Friday party that we have been having with our own employees. And we were dancing together from the GM until the cleaning lady. No prejudgment. People do not think on how you are dressed. People just are extremely authentic. They appreciate the fact that you basically want to be one of them. And I think people are like this everywhere in the world. And I think we live here in Romania, but also in Europe, a big life of prejudice. And we are so much afraid of how the others will gonna say about us that we miss so many opportunities. And we also miss a lot of authenticity because of that. So I don't know how I'm gonna bring that here, unfortunately. So we built a new wing and I have a bar now, but unfortunately I cannot use it because people cannot come to work. But really I hope that I can bring this from this experience a bit of joy and a bit of fun, because enjoyment is also one of our values. And I think we live it more in different countries than in others. And actually the last, let's say, lesson that I learned, and it's an answer to my question in the first slide, and it's my answer, I don't say it's right, is the answer that defined my experience, is that if you really want the people to be with you, try to identify what motivates them, what drives them. Don't give them corporate bullshit. They're not going to swallow it. So they really need to feel it. And sometimes it's very difficult. Sometimes it's very difficult. But if you do that, the engagement level in your organization for sure will be sky high. So that's a bit my presentation, Raluca. A little bit more personal than the normal, let's say, situation. But I really wanted to share these lessons because they helped me quite become the professional and the person that I am today.
Thank you so much, Sorin. Thank you also for the personal note. I know you told me about that and I agreed. I think that was something that I agreed with each of you. Bring on the personal note, and thank you very much for that. I want to link your final note with the question comments that we received in the Q&A. You've come to these 5 lessons after going abroad. Well, not all of us have this option to go abroad and have these learnings. So what would be your advice, recommendation for the ones that don't have this opportunity to go abroad? So how they can come to their own personal learning?
Yeah, very good question. Yeah, it helped me, the fact that I was abroad for sure, but that's not the essence of my lessons, because it could have been in other assignments, other jobs in Romania, in a way. It doesn't necessarily matter where you are, although, just like a parenthesis, if somebody has an opportunity to go abroad, I think it's a big loss of opportunity not to do it. And of course, I mean, it's a personal choice based on the comfort of your family and everything. But me now, judging from outside, it brings much more value than the losses that the sacrifices that you have to do. Now, coming back, I think the most important thing that you need to do is just to open your eyes and your mind. Because let's say I was so much stubborn before I left Romania, and in a way, maybe I would have not succeeded to open up that much if I would have not been put in an extreme environment like the one I've been to. But that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody needs to live the same experience. It just helped me open up my mind and my eyes, and to ask myself also, what can I do? Why should I always have expectations? Why shouldn't I also give? What should I do in order to change something about it? And I think this is the first question you need to answer in order to be able to get there. If the answer is nothing, then it means that you are not open to do that.
You are not there yet.
Yes.
It's not the time yet. Yes. Thank you so much. There are a few questions that came for our speakers. I would invite you, being also conscious of time, I would invite you to move to the last part of our event, to the panel conversation. And I will go through, I'll also go through the questions that we've received. It's just that I want to start with one question that I have prepared for my guest speakers. So as I was mentioning at the beginning of the event, last year this time was quite troubling for all of us. So imagine that you wake up tomorrow and it's 23rd of March 2020 all over again. Well, knowing everything that you've learned in the past 12 months, what do you do differently this time?
I'll answer, Raluca, because for me it's very simple. I thought about that myself even before you asked. So I would, what this has taught us is that you have to take every day as it comes. So with very little room to make plans and to really control what's going to happen. Even if you look at how this virus spreads and what's going on, actually you have no certainty. We've had situations here where in the same office, some people caught it, other people have not, and you actually don't know what and why. So you have no control anyway. So for me, it's simple. I would have taken my family, moved to Bali for 6 months at least. And at least I would have known that I would have spent the time in a beautiful environment, giving my children a wonderful experience, and time would have passed anyway. So of course, none of us did that because we didn't know. And it's just something that we are dreaming of. So yeah, but I think it's teaching us for the future to maybe, be less, I don't know, so strict with our environment. Something like also my co-speakers also mentioned, it's important to open the eyes to what's going on and just, go with it most of the times without imposing your own plans and direction so much.
Thank you. In fact, I know someone who went to visit a friend in Australia in January, and not sure yet if it's unfortunately or fortunately, but it's still there because they said, okay, what's the point of coming back? Thank you very much, Andrea. Daniel?
I think Andrea has read my mind as well, and you can see, no, the other way, sorry.
Which one?
The boat, I mean.
The boat,
so,
you're taking.
I also like to travel a lot, and similar to Sorin, I have seen 50 plus countries, but I would have taken my wife and daughter also to see those they haven't seen. So probably this time or pandemic has shown us that yes, connecting to the world outside is really important. it needs to be a balance between the digital way of how we are now working and this balance. And it's about connection. In the same time, I would have loved to connect my teams a bit more, because we were planning a lot of events to connect the teams from the two locations, but it would have happened later in the year. So I think it's connection. And maybe also to get back to the question that the audience had, or the advice that you mentioned that I should say, I'm very much in favor of a hybrid model, where people, for some reasons, will need to reconnect in an office that will be redefined and redesigned for the future for certain activities, but they should also have the liberty to work from wherever they can and embrace a bit more nature.
Thank you, Daniel.
Well, I suppose it is my turn now. That's quite a question. To be honest, I never thought about it. In a way, maybe I'm a bit more masochistic, but in a way, I also see a lot of positives from this pandemic, because I think it was a smoother return to Romania for me, because coming from a crisis of 6 years, then to go directly to nothing, it is a bit of strange. So in a way, kind of thank the pandemic crisis for that. It helped me settle in a bit better way. I think one thing that I should have done better for sure is the connection with my MT-2 team, which I think I started well at the beginning of the pandemic with quite a drum, but then I think I could have done it better. I will not change too much from the business perspective, because I think it was quite a learning experience for the whole management team. And I'm happy to be in this management team, because somehow very diverse and extremely different. We got along very well and we complemented each other very well. And sometimes some closer to panic than you need to, because we have 6 nationalities. It's also a bit different. So it was, let's say, challenging, but also fun. So besides connecting with my team more often, I don't think I would change too much about it.
I agree. We have received so many questions. Unfortunately, we are almost close to the end, but with your agreement, I will stay 5 minutes more. Do you agree? Because there are a few questions which are so strong. So we have a question for Sorin. Sorin, talking about personal and company purpose, what did you transfer from your Congo experience to your professional life?
A lot of things, most probably. I think the most important thing is that, or a few most important things are related to the fact that I don't consider myself an HR expert anymore. And in a way, I'm also not, because if you look to the reality, the HR lies in every leader, right? In a way or another. So what I do differently is that instead of bringing at the table the expert view from the HR, I engage all the other members of the leadership team to get involved in the solution design. And of course, I mean, I steer some of the discussions because I have a few more knowledge in some areas, but I start with the mindset that I don't hold the truth, and that, let's say, building it together gets you to two things: better outcome and huge buy-in. Mm-hmm. And I learned this in Congo, because in Congo, if you bring your solution, the first holiday you go, everything goes back to the same way it was before. So if you don't involve the people and do the change with them and implement and design with them so that they own it, it will never happen in the right way, or at least it will never stick. Mm-hmm. So that was extreme, because in Congo, for example, if an expat leaves in holiday after 1 year, everything that he has done during that year vanishes. So in 2 weeks time, when you go in holiday, when you come back, you basically start your assignment from the first day 1 year ago. So, and that was my lesson. And I didn't fall into that trap. I could really go on holiday. That was a privileged one.
Thank you very much, Sorin. And in the same note, I see Andrea also received the question. Let's take 2 more questions because I have one for Andrea and one for Daniel. So for Andrea, it has been an extreme period of time for each of us in a different way, but for sure one that we will never forget. So Andrea, what have you learned about yourself during this time?
I will just stick to one. Of course, we learned many things, or we think we learned many things until, as you say, this pandemic goes on holiday and we go back. But until then, I learned much more about my fragility and the need to take care of myself. Not necessarily, you know, from the, you know, the modern way of looking at it. Yeah, do sports, do this, do that. But take care of yourself in the way and at the time when what you do makes sense for that particular need. Because I'm sure that in this year, many of us have faced fragility or uncertainty or lack of, how shall I say, lack of strength or, you know, periods when you feel more chaotic. So at that point, taking care of yourself in the way that only you know how, I learned to be fine with that and not care that, you know, people say, yeah, you should practice, you should do this, you should do that 10 times a month. It doesn't matter. It matters what works for you. So I learned about fragility and taking more care about myself during those times.
Indeed, fragility and vulnerability. That was, we discovered, I think, about us. And one last question for the day, and it will be for Daniel. What you think that purpose and community spirit is seen differently by different generations of your people? If yes, how do you see the youngest colleagues of yours in that regard?
I had the impression at the beginning that that's the case, very honest. And I think in a more normal or in a back to normal situation, it will again phase out. But during these times, I've seen at least in 2 examples, and one was during summer, where everybody felt the need to go out, do some outdoor activities, even if it was not one of their typical hobbies. They did the same thing with the same purpose. And I'm talking here about this event, for example, where they did kayaking and something for the environment. And the second example is about Christmas. So for Christmas, we did a surprise to people, and a good part of my management team delivered the packages to our people. So not through the typical times that we have done it in a different way. And regardless generations, the response was, we want to get back to the office. We want to meet, we want to socialize. So I think that in this time, they really stick together, and you don't feel this difference of age or beliefs or anything that goes into more sensitive ways of what defines you as a person. It will change, of course, back at some point, but I've seen that the difference or the delta has somehow disappeared in these times.
I was on mute, of course. Thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you very much for your insights and your thoughts. To be honest, I would stay with you another half an hour. We also have received lots of questions. I'll make sure that we will get answer to these questions. I will pass them by. Thank you again to our guest speakers for making the time and also sharing with us their learning. We come to an end to our event. I also want to thank our partners, Coaching DPT, Culture Amp, Define PR, Netherlands Romanian Chamber of Commerce, and Romania Insider. And Last but not least, I really want to thank to all our audience. We had an amazing audience today, quite lots of people who attended our webinar. I've taken home some, so I leave this meeting with some homework, as I mentioned, and I hope you also find it useful. We meet again 3 months from now on June 15 for our second event from the Transforming HR series, where we will have as guest speakers Adina Vidroiu from Microsoft. She is HR lead for Romania, Greece, Cyprus, and Malta. We will also have Cristian Secoșan, CEO of Siemens. And we will also have with us Melania Jaravete from Carbus. She is the HR director. So looking forward to meeting you again in 3 months' time to talk about what we need to unlearn as leaders to cope with the changes. So thank you again to everyone and see you soon.
Thank you, Raluca.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.